it looks like the pyramid's literally disappearing. Like it's strange. I don't know how they're doing it.
So we've got a lot of symbolism going on here too. Two pillars. The two pillars represent the forbidden knowledge. So the pyramid itself, they basically made the pyramid here. Imagine the spanning out of these light beams. It creates that Star of David kind of shape, which is the Freemason symbol, which is the as above, so below. But this is exactly what you would see in a Freemason lodge in their main room, where there's the throne in the center, there's the two pillars on the side, there's the triangular arch over the top, and that's where they do their rituals.
All right, so we're going to be watching this strange ritual that just took place at the Great Pyramid in Egypt. There's some really weird stuff happening here, and I want to talk about maybe what's really going on when it comes to the pharaoh's curse. Have you ever heard about that? You know, scientists have tried to describe like maybe the scientific explanation behind that. I think there might be another explanation that we're going to reveal a little later on. So let's watch this video and see what's going on. So they have, you see the pyramids behind I guess the stage or whatever, and they've got these two pillars there, and they've got the lights crossing, and then they have the shape of the pyramid made by the lights. What somehow they're getting the imagery, it looks like the pyramid's literally disappearing. Like it's strange. I don't know how they're doing that.
So we've got a lot of symbolism going on here too. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah.
So you got the two pillars. The two pillars represent the forbidden knowledge. So the pyramid itself, they basically made the pyramid here. So you have the two pillars that are holding up the like archway on top, right? The triangular archway, which is the capstone. And in addition to that, if you imagine the spanning out of these light beams, it creates that Star of David kind of shape, which is the Freemason symbol, which is the as above, so below. There's so much imagery going on here, but this is exactly what you would see in a Freemason lodge, like in their main room, where there's the throne in the center, there's the two pillars on the side, there's the triangular arch over the top, and that's where they do their rituals.
So it definitely looks like the sigil of Lucifer, like the lights. And I see the Freemasonry symbol there. This is happening in between the two pillars on stage.
It's crazy. So they're
some fallen watchers.
Yep, the Nephilim. That's what I was going to say. The heroes of old, the heroes of renown.
That's what it looks like. I mean, obviously, it's supposed to represent potentially AI today. If you look at the what coming out of the screen, it's like, but I think it's connected, to something deeper.
Yeah. Well, that's the future of Nephilim. For the Watchers in Enochian literature, the Watchers are that massive. They're literally that tall. So there's the story about how I guess it was Enoch himself who went down into the underworld, where the Watchers were held in chains. And the way he described them being in chains down there was massive beings like this. And this was beyond the gates, where like the gates to hell, where at one day that's going to be opened up. But the gates and the keys and all that, I think, is metaphorical, and it could be, maybe there's some literal meaning to this, but I do think that it is directly related to the coming technology and how the Watcher spirits are going to be coming to us through this technology that is going to be connected with, the future of like transcendentalism and did I say the word right? Singularity, all that stuff. Like that's what's going on here.
Yeah, I think you could be right, Doug. I mean, I think that's definitely the imagery that I'm seeing. I just love how with the pyramid and the lights, how they make the pyramid disappear. Like it's like I think it's fog machines or whatever they're doing. To add a layer of like smoke to where all you can see is the light that's hitting it. Now you can't see what's behind it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's pretty cool effect, but at the same time, it's like I think it almost represents like a portal. Like it was here, now it's gone. Like an opening of like there's another dimension happening here. and like the breaking down of a wall, like a thin layer of a wall between one dimension and another.
Yeah, the veil thinning.
Yes, yeah, like that imagery there. Very interesting. So I had this thought though after I watched this video. Go ahead and switch this back to. So here's the thought I had, Doug. Let me know what you think about it after I watched this video. I've heard about the Pharaoh's curse before, which is like archaeologists throughout history have talked about this thing. Whether it's cultural, whether it's real, whether it's just a ghost story or whatever. And obviously, we know now that the pharaohs weren't actually buried in, at least according to what I've found, the pharaohs weren't really buried in the pyramids, but they were buried in other places, like the tombs of the pharaohs and things like that. But we also know that they did a bunch of evil rituals, like around the pyramids, in the pyramid, whatever it was, like at the pyramid sites. And so it's like, I think that, seeing another quote unquote ritual happening right there is not weird. And it's actually expected. But a lot of people have talked about how like this curse would follow them when they would go disturb either the bodies of the pharaohs, the mummies, and then like people they know would die, or they would get sick, or or they would lose their fortune, whatever it was. Always these weird things that would happen. And I want to read this. There's actually a very clear inscription in one of the tombs. It's the tomb of one of the 6th dynasty pharaohs, and it says, "As for all men who shall enter this my tomb impure, there will be judgment. An end shall be made for him. I shall seize his neck like a bird. I shall cast the fear of myself into him."
Dang.
And so I'm like looking at that. And I'm like, people have tried to explain this scientifically, through like saying, well, it was bacteria or fungi or possibly radiation, that they picked up when they got close to the mummies. But if there were evil rituals taking place on these sites at these locations, and people went in there, in a sense, impure, like they, like for me, I'm a Christian covered by the blood of Jesus, so I would not be afraid of walking through a pyramid or even walking into a mummy.
But you're also probably not going to get caught in one anytime soon either. So.
Well, right, but I'm also not going to involve myself into any weird rituals either.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm wondering, were there leftover like evil spirits in these sites based off of these rituals that people somehow accidentally picked up? So here's one Egyptian archaeologist, Hawass, he's from this last century. He removed 2 child mummies from Bahariya Oasis and took them to a museum, and later reported, and there were 2 child mummies, right? He later reported that he had constant dreams where he was being haunted by these children in his dreams, these 2 children.
Oh, wow.
And he claimed it didn't stop until the father mummy was reunited with the children mummy in the museum later. And so it's like things like that, like people would put that in the under the classification of the mummy's curse, right?
Right.
Pharaoh's curse, and so I remember. What are your thoughts on that? And I want to share one more thing that I had.
Well, I think that, first of all, it'd be easy to explain everything away with some sort of science or psychology in that sense. Like, you could definitely just say, like, well, he just was feeling guilty or something. Like, you could get deep into the psychology of that. But the thing that I think is really interesting about stuff like this that I think is kind of important to note, I don't think we should be separating the scientific from the spiritual. I don't think that they need to be 2 different things. I think that they can sometimes be one and the same thing, and whether or not that's an evil spiritual thing or a holy spiritual thing, that's a different topic altogether. But when I think of like on the other side of this, when you see that people have miraculous healings of some sort, oftentimes there actually might be some kind of scientific explanation for that, but scientifically it works, or like physiologically, biologically, it worked somehow. It's not like all of a sudden it was just magic, ta-da, done. Like something happened within a person's body, but it was instigated by the spirit and handled by the spirit. And sometimes it's kind of still unexplainable how some people get healed, but something happened there, and it's because the spirit world still works through the physical world. And so you can have these things happen, and the root is still spiritual. It's just that just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there, but it's also using something as the vehicle to make that happen. It's another, Horse of Troy thing, It's just the cover for what is really deep down that you can't see, but it's there.
Yeah, the Trojan horse. Yeah. Well, I feel like I had plenty of Trojan horse horse episodes in my life pre-Christ. So one story that came to my mind, when I read this story about this archaeologist and the nightmares and stuff, was I had a experience before I became a Christian in college of sleep paralysis, where I woke up out of my sleep and I frozen. I couldn't move, I'm like laying on my back. And then I literally started sleepwalking, but without being able to control my body. Like I lifted my arms like a freaking mummy, like a zombie, and like sat up in bed and was like getting up, and I'm like, and I was hearing things, sirens and stuff. It was like hallucinations, but I could see everything. I just couldn't control myself, and I was like, what is happening? Right. And even though I wasn't like living as a Christian at that time, like I knew God existed, and I started in my brain, even though I couldn't talk, I started saying Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And as soon as I started thinking the name Jesus, I snapped out of it. Right. And what my thought is now is like, well, I'm careful about the things that I get involved in because I know things about the spiritual world, because I know things can rub off or whatever. Now I'm not afraid. And just like that, where he says like that inscription in the tomb says, if you enter the tomb impure, there will be judgment, right? And it's this idea of like, I'm going to cast the fear of myself into him. It's like, I don't have to be afraid of that, right? Because I've been made pure by the blood of Jesus. And, it's like, I have the King of Kings, and over my life. I don't have to be afraid of pharaohs, and things like that. I don't have to be afraid of anyways. But the interesting thought was like, there were so many like rituals in a sense that I wasn't afraid of getting involved in before Jesus. And I had those experiences where it was like, I was being haunted, a little bit. But now we have things like this ritual, like,
that's what it is,
taking place at the pyramid, and some people are like, yeah, it's fine, it's just a concert. And I'm like, I wonder if there's more to this, and if people should be more, if people are made more aware, if they'd be more careful, about going to something like this and involving themselves. That's my final thought.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting because like we deal with rituals all the time in our daily life, in and out. We're doing some kind of ritual all the time. It just depends on who you're doing the ritual for, and so we don't want to make the term ritual too like sensational in the sense. It really is a basic word, but the reality is, where the signs are, typically they reference something and they're doing it on purpose. Nobody puts something together like this on accident. They did not unintentionally put all this symbolism in there. And if it was one thing here, one thing there, like you talked about the other day on stream, like accidentally doing like hand symbols and stuff like that, like that's one thing, right? But to intentionally go out of your way to set up this extremely expensive show with all of this imagery, you are very intentionally designing and implementing a ritual, and nobody does something on that big of a scale without expecting some kind of a return. And the return in this instance is, I don't know, but it's going to be spiritual. And whoever, I don't know if like the people who went to the show are going to have some sort of collateral damage from that or not. It depends on where people are at in their own life space, but I do think that the people who put this show on are going to have some serious spiritual implications from it, whether they see it that way or not. It is coming, but it's also just foretelling, or it's a foreshadowing of things to come at the end of the day. This was a ritual to show the world this is what we want. And the reality is, at the end of the day, God can still step in and stop it. Just because they did a ritual doesn't mean it's going to succeed. But it seems like the chances are pretty good.
And even if they agreed with some weird spiritual ritual, to a false god or whatever, it's like then at the same time, the blood of Jesus can still cover that and can still set people free. It's still the answer. So I think it's a good episode. Very weird video, but I'm glad we got a chance to react to it.
Yeah, that was fun.